Joseph Duarte covers University of Houston Chronicle, joins us on 365 Sports. Joseph, I was following you. I always follow your timeline. It's always filled with such great information, and I enjoy it. So did they have a scrimmage last night, and how, in your opinion, what did you walk away with what you saw?
Well, it was, first of all, thanks for having me on, guys. First of all, it was more of just a regular practice. It was the first time all camp they'd been able to have a night workout under the lights, sort of simulate a game day. They've had some construction going on over at TDCU Stadium with a new video board and some suites and the operations center. So haven't had a chance to go over there. So really same type of practice, just had some coaches up in the press box to work on the headset communication stuff. But really the main takeaway was this was the first practice since Willie Fritz told us a couple weeks ago that they would start to sort of wean down the guys who were in competition for first and second team. So the emphasis was on getting those two units a majority of the work moving forward from last night to when the season starts.
Joseph, I mean, Donovan Smith has been getting a lot of positive pub outside of Houston. There's a lot of NFL draft people that think that if he makes a turn this season and quits turning the ball over as much, that he could be someone that the NFL teams like because of his obviously unbelievably great athletic skill set. Do you think they see that turning around a little bit for him?
I think they do. And, you look at, he certainly passes the eye test and you've seen the scouts that have been out at practice. And, I think there is some interest. And you alluded to the turnovers. I thought he did a lot better with that late in the season, but he was also dealing with the labrum tear that he suffered in the Baylor game. So he played the last 3 games injured. But, he's been cleared. He didn't go through spring, didn't do much. But since probably the beginning of June, he said he's been able to air it out. They still have him on what Willie Fritz calls a pitch count. He did throw Monday, he threw last night, and then they're off today. So they're able to kind of keep him fresh and bring him along slowly. But if things work out the way many believe that he can, take that next step, especially working with Sean Bell, former, Baylor guy, and Kevin Barbay, they feel like that, yeah, he could be a guy that could be in position to go, maybe that second day type guy in the NFL draft.
Joseph, Tony Mathis Jr. out with a torn ACL, man. It seems like the running backs in college football just should be wrapped in bubble wrap for the next few days. But I know they have a couple of guys that they've, had lead the team in rushing the past couple of years that are still there in that room. But what do you think the Tony Mathis Jr. news means? How big, if at all, is that to what Houston had planned?
Well, he's the experienced guy. This was a senior year. Didn't get a ton of carries last year, but they used him in so many other different ways, especially pass protection and stuff. So he was an experienced guy. So that's where you can't replace that. But you mentioned some of the others. Parker Jenkins, that was a freshman last year. He led the team in rushing. He's back. Stacey Snead is sort of that change of pace guy, real quick. So they bring him back. So those are the two veterans that they have returning. And then they got a guy from the Central Texas area, Rashawn Stanford, who was Killeen ISD's all-time leading rusher. He's healthy, so he'll be in the mix. He's looked really good in camp. And then you got true freshmen, DJ Butler and Jamarian Burnett. So Willie Fritz has said that if you're a freshman, it doesn't matter if you can contribute and you can get the job done, you're going to see playing time. So it'll be interesting to see how they do it, because in this offense, he likes to run the ball, and they've had, 40-plus average on carries per game. So I think you're going to see a number of these running backs getting moved in and out every game.
I hated the fact that Sanford got hurt last year. We watched him when he was at Harker Heights. Just a young man that can I know it's a college game, but he can take on a lot of carries too, and explosive, but also very strong, even in between the tackles. Joseph Manjack IV is a load. Last year, he really improved what he did as a freshman. Your thoughts about, can he take that next jump and be a possible all-conference type receiver?
Well, he's the fourth. I want to know what the other three are like, because this guy is, he's a very dependable. First, he's just an eccentric kind of character, personality-wise. I mean, he doesn't wear gloves. He's not your typical type of receiver, but he makes plays. And if you're in a pinch, he's a guy that you go to. And I think this is his time. This is his moment. The first couple of years he's played behind different guys. A couple of years ago, Tank Dell was on the roster, and then just last year you had Sam Brown, who ends up transferring in the offseason to Miami. And here's Joseph Mantek, and he makes plays, and I think he's ready for that increased role, because you look at even though they lose a Matthew Golden to Texas and a Sam Brown, they're not in bad shape. They've got at least 7 or 8 guys that they feel like they can run in and out of this offense and play 3 and 4 wides if they have to at times. They have Stephen Johnson. They went out and got Mekhi Muse from Georgia. He's going to be electric in the running game. You have a couple of Tulsa guys and Marquise Shoulders and Devin Williams, and they're just going down the list. They feel like they've got guys that can contribute. But Joseph Mantek is in my opinion, he's the top of the ladder receivers this year, and a guy that really, I think it's his time now to make that next step.
Their offensive line, Joseph, it's a little bit kind of a smattering of experience and new guys. How do they feel about that unit overall? Well,
that's the area that is still very much in flux, and how they decide to go. Tank Jenkins at right guard, he's a 7th-year guy, I believe, and he's the only holdover. They were going to have a young guy at center, and then of course everything's new. They're replacing an all Big 12 tackle on the left side in Patrick Paul. So right now I would say that they're for those 4 other spots outside of Tank Jenkins, there's probably 7 to 8 guys still in competition, and that's where Willie Fritz has said the first 3 or maybe 3 games they're going to run a lot of guys out to see what works, not just on the O-line, but we're talking every position. And then that's sort of, outside of about 12 guys that he feels like are starters right now, those other 10 or so spots, you're going to have a lot of different guys going in, and I think you're going to see a lot of that when it comes to the offensive line in particular.
Joseph, this is going to be a much different team by the end of the year than what it is right now, obviously, and even what it is through the first month of the season. But just how much kind of talk and anticipation has there been for that non-conference schedule, which I don't know what it looked like when they were kind of cobbling it together, but you arrive here in 2024 and damn, man, UNLV off 9 wins, and Oklahoma and Rice, which is always the rivalry game there. You're going to learn a lot about Houston, I would say, in that first month, aren't you?
Yeah, Willie was probably wondering where the Stephen F. Austin that he gets next year in the Prairie View and places like the FCS schools were when they did this. But yeah, you're right. I mean, I think they have, according to Phil Steele, maybe the 7th toughest schedule in the country this year. That they have 5 ranked alone just with the Big 12 schedule, and then you think if you get rid of Oklahoma and they're in the SEC and you play them in Norman. The only thing worse, Dana Holgerson's first game ever was against Oklahoma and a certain future Heisman winner on the road to begin his tenure at Houston. So I guess things could be a little bit tougher for Willie. But yeah, it's going to be tough. Rice beat them last year in double overtime, so it's no gimme early. And I think most places have them in that 4-win range in terms of what the expectations are. So they've got their work cut out for them, but I think eventually, they get this thing turned around. It's just probably going to take some time.
Well, Willie Fritz wins wherever he's at, but it doesn't always happen immediately. Sometimes it does, right, depending on who you take it over. For them to be a bowl team, what, in your opinion, must happen? Because they're going to have to win a couple of games that right now, and same thing with, like you said, that group of 4 to 5, 6 teams at the bottom of the Big 12. But for them to get to a bowl game, what, in your opinion, things must happen?
Well, I think offensively they're going to be okay. I think they get this. Where I think it comes down to is on defense. Can they get stopped? And, this is a defense that's gone through a complete makeover. They've got one really true returner out of the entire starting unit. So, and a lot of it's going to fall on the secondary. What I've seen in camp so far, I think this is a secondary that's got a lot of athleticism. They make plays. They're really aggressive, and that's what Houston needs, because they have not been able to stop anyone the last couple of years. And if you can't stop anyone and you're allowing 40 points a game or close to that, I mean, you put a lot of burden on your offense, and that's just not going to cut it. So I think if they can get the stop and it falls on the defense, I think this team can pull out a win here or there, because, there are some opportunities. Cincinnati on the road, for instance, maybe even BYU on the road. You win a couple of those, and you hold serve for some of the home games, you're in that position that maybe if you're 5 or 6 wins, I think that's a successful season in Willie Fritz's first year with that schedule.
Joseph Duarte with us, covers Houston with us for 365 Sports. Go ahead, Paul.
Joseph, you mentioned that Rice game last year. Was that something that the fans maybe – I mean, and Dana Holgerson's tenure was kind of turning in the direction that it did anyway, but was that game for the fans kind of the point of no return, at least –
It was the death blow.
Yeah, it was? Okay.
That was the moment, because between the way it happened, falling behind 28-0, still having a chance, and then after the game, pretty much throwing your team under the bus, which Dana had no filter. So Dana said what Dana says. And against a rival team that you felt like you're better than. I mean, you've always been better than in the series. Those things all added up. And the worst part of it was the following week was your Big 12 opener, the biggest game possibly in the school's history, and the air got sucked out of that, and it just was not the same the rest of the season, and that just took all the momentum, and it was I would venture to just say that it was the beginning of the end for Dana at Houston.
Joseph, where are they with the athletic director search? I know you've probably gotten peppered with that question, 20 times a day, every day since that was announced that they were going to be searching. So, just where do they find themselves at the moment, and what's kind of the anticipation level at this point?
It's the longest search in history. You're going on about 2 months now since they let Chris Pesman go. But, a lot of factors came into it. It's not all on the hurricane, but, travel schedules, vacations. And just frankly, trying to compile a list of candidates they feel like are in the that's somebody that they feel like they could go to. I'm hearing that we're probably in the next week. That's when they hope to have something finalized. There's been some names, the non-traditional AD types like a David Fletcher from here at the NRG Stadium deals with the Texans, and then some of the others that are more well-known, like an Eddie Nunez from New Mexico is a name that I've heard quite frequently, and somebody who, from what my understanding is, he's at the top of the list. So they're working through it. I think this is the final stage of interviews, probably three candidates left at this point. And I think you would have to have somebody in place before the season opener. That would be ideal, because otherwise, the school year's already beginning.
I don't remember the timing of the Rice game, and you mentioned that was the death blow that started the momentum downhill. But what would have happened had they beaten Texas? Would that have changed the outcome?
Anything against Texas, I've learned on this beat, sort of, for if you get a dollar for something, Texas is like an extra $5 or something added to it, added to the till, because it's Texas. And you have wanted to beat them all these years, and they won't play you and all that stuff. So I could have seen things possibly going in a different direction, because that game would have meant a lot more to a lot of alums, especially big alums. And the way it ended with the call and how they felt like they didn't get a call down the stretch, that could have changed things. But then, you still had some opportunities. You were beating Oklahoma State at one point in the first half before losing that game. And then, you go to UCF and then that's the end of the season. So, you could put that under the what if file, but it certainly would not have, it would have helped Dana a lot more than sort of been one of the final nails in the coffin.
Joseph, thank you. Appreciate your time. It's a great follow. If you haven't, you should. Joseph Duarte, covering Houston football and also men's basketball and athletics, with us on 365 Sports, and his thoughts about last night, the practice, with much more of a type of a scrimmage look or feel because of the coaches in the box and much, much more.